Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And we have another day and another Lorna Slater story. And this one's great. She is furious. And you know why she's furious? And it's great to see, by the way. But she's furious because the Westminster government is going to give the DRS its blessing and go ahead. So why is she furious? There's a few strings attached, and she knows that they are probably impossible to meet. Oh dear, poor old Lorna. She gets nothing, does she? But then, if she can't do her job properly, what does she expect? Anyway, this is absolutely breaking news. I have the piece here. When I flick it up, you'll see it was released, it says 15 minutes ago. By the time I actually got around and started making this, it was released literally 5 minutes before when I saw it. And I was like, I've got to do the video. So I rushed up, turned everything on, bang. So here it is. So it is as hot off the press as it can possibly be. So yes, it's a cracking story. We're going to go straight in on it and see what latest malarkey Slater is getting up to. Here goes. So Slater blasts the UK government as they attach conditions to the DRS. And as you see, it says 16 minutes ago at the time of this recording, but it was literally a couple of minutes when I saw it, and it was like, so we are talking breaking news. Lorna Slater has accused the UK government of showing utter disregard for devolution over reports that they will only allow the deposit return scheme to go ahead with a number of conditions. She's got to remember that they're under no obligation whatsoever to allow it to go ahead at all. She must be very, very fortunate and consider herself fortunate that she's even getting this wee morsel. According to reports on Friday morning, the necessary exemption for the Internal Market Act will only be granted if the Scottish Government exclude glass from the DRS and agree to standardise the deposit charge, the barcodes and the labelling across the whole of the UK. That, for them, is the deal breaker. The BBC report that the UK government will also insist on a reciprocal membership system so that businesses that join in any of the four nations are automatically signed up across all of them. And that means that any business in England that sells a bottle that can go into the north and they can claim their 20 pence back, into Scotland and claim their 20 pence back. And that's grand. So they've got to agree to that, which means immediately anyone living near the border will run south, buy their stuff, run back north, drink their whatever they're drinking, and then go to the shop and get 20p back on it because they've got to agree to it. Fantastic. The Internal Market Act was brought in after Brexit to try and ensure frictionless trade across the different nations of the UK. And because Scotland's scheme would come in before similar initiatives in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, it would ultimately create a trade barrier, and it requires an exemption. And that's why they very, very lately applied for an exemption, didn't do all the paperwork, missed out all the assessments, missed all the impact statements, because none of them can do their job, as I've covered, because they're all morons. Absolutely, without doubt. Anyway, Ms Slater has previously warned that without a decision by the end of the month, the scheme may not be viable. The scheme is not viable. It absolutely isn't. Especially with the UK putting out a UK-wide one in about 13, 14 months' time anyway. That's when the launch happens. So I think it's going to be March 25 is when they're looking at putting the full system out there. So she's going on about this, but it's not one of ours. It's not the one I came up with. No, this one works because they've looked at everything. They've sorted it all out. They know how everything interacts. They have put more effort into it than you have because you didn't put any in. Anyway, there's been a long-running dispute between the UK and Scottish ministers over when this was first requested. Well, the UK government have actually published when they received the paperwork, when it was the 6th of March, and Greer of the Greens, the man who's never eaten protein in his life, the thinnest, tiniest man with a very thin pencil neck and the very large red head on top, looks like, seriously, was he bullied at school? What do you think? Bet he was still bullied. I bet he was bullied after school. I bet his mum bullies him. Anyway, he's there, and of course now that he's got a bit of power, he's pushing it out a bit, and he's an obnoxious human being. He's look at me, I'm in charge. He's full of himself because he's got that little bit of power. It's the classic sign of someone who was massively bullied, but you only have to look at him to see that. Anyway, So we know it was the 6th of March. They've admitted it. He admitted it. And even then, they've admitted themselves that they didn't put in all these impact statements and assessments and all that they were required to do. They've admitted that. And so now they're wondering, oh, but why haven't we got the exemption? It's because you didn't do the work. That's why. Anyway, the scheme would see each single-use item carrying a levy of 20 pence, which would be refunded when the empty container was returned to retailers. And it was supposed to launch in August, but it has been put back until next year. It has effectively been cancelled in favour of the UK-wide one. In a statement released on Friday, Ms Slater said the Scottish Government had learned of the conditions attached to the DRS through the media. She said, once again, the UK Government has shown utter disregard for devolution. Scottish ministers have, as yet, received no notice of their decision. This is treating the Scottish Parliament with contempt. You read this in the BBC, didn't you? So you guarantee, then, that the BBC speaks for the government, do you? How do you know that what came from the BBC is real? You don't. You're speculating on news stories. And even if it was true, so what? So absolutely what? There's lots of devolved matters, and there's no way. Here's the thing. You're sitting in a parliament that exists because you accepted devolution, and people signed the acceptance of those rules. And this is part of those rules. If you don't like it, please, bugger off back to Canada, love. Stand for the Canadian Parliament and see how far you go. Said Scottish ministers have yet received no notice of their decision. This is treating the Scottish Parliament with contempt. If press reports are accurate, this would be an 11th hour decision from the UK government to unilaterally remove glass from Scotland's deposit return scheme, which would ride roughshod over the devolution settlement, undermine our efforts to protect our environment and reduce climate emissions. And of course, it will do none of those things. None. Zero. Nil. Nada. Nothing. Zilch. It will be a dot of difference. For one thing, it won't protect the environment because you've got all a bit of glass, we all collect it. Now send in the 500 diesel lorries to drive up and down the country needlessly to pick this stuff up. You know, damaging the environment. And it is nothing to do with devolution settlement. It's all within the devolution settlement. How can it damage that thing which has already been agreed on and signed? And the very fact that your parliament exists is because it is happy with that devolution settlement. It signed it. It agreed to it. So it isn't damaging that settlement. And it has got nothing to do with protecting the environment. This is all about crap. They constantly go on about this crap. Oh, we're protecting the environment. No, you're not. You're absolutely not. So sod off. Anyway, she said, we can see no justification for their reported actions, which would undermine their own climate targets. No, it wouldn't. Absolutely no, it wouldn't. It's not at all undermining their climate targets. They are working towards putting in an effective scheme, one that works and one that won't waste millions like yours will. And even, here's the really weird, I've said this before, here's the thing, even if they don't get their particular DRS scheme, they've signed the contracts. There's a man on $300,000 a year for 5 years. He's got to be paid whatever happens. And so even if they close down that one and open up the UK-wide one, he is still paid $300,000 a year by the Scottish Government for 5 years because he's got a contract. And he can sit at home for 5 years, scratch his backside, do nothing, read the papers, make a cup of tea, take the dog for a walk. $300,000 a year. Marvellous. I wish I had that job. Anyway, she said if this isn't as it turns out as reported them, many of these bottles would be unnecessarily end up as broken glass on our streets, our parks and our beaches. Oh yes, that's right. Because you're not collecting them, they're going to get damaged. Oh rubbish. This woman invents things as she goes along. Because the glass has been taken out of the scheme. It means people are immediately going to run around and hurl bottles everywhere. They're not doing it now, are they, love? They're just not. So why would they suddenly start? Unless they're hurling them at you. I mean, seriously. Earlier this week, Rishi Sunak said the Scottish Government should reconsider the DRS. That's political speech for give it up. And he's quite right too, because there's a better one coming. Now, what she's not addressing still, because she's too dim, is the 500 million pound debt that she has lumbered Scotland with, and that she is desperately trying to foist onto the UK government, because she knows she has committed an ultimate boo-boo. She has made one of the worst mistakes of anyone in the history of Scottish governance. This is up there with the Darien exploration. She is such a thick bin. I can use other words. Other words are available, but YouTube doesn't like them. But just take it as read that when I say a thick bin, what I actually mean is she's a thick. Anyway, she is. I'm going to give up with her. I'm not, because, you know, in a day or two's time there's going to be another story, and boy, we just keep laughing at her. But anyway, I shall bring this to an end. I shall roll off, come up, and we will be out of this video. They really are an odd lot in the Greens, aren't they? I mean, like I say, you've got Greer, who has probably spent half his life being hoisted up by his underpants. You've got Harvey, who looks like he needs to sit in your garden with a little fishing rod and a funny hat. You know, because he looks like a little gnome. Then you've got this Canadian bin, who is as thick as two short planks. I mean, she has none of them have got any charm. None of them have got any sort of personal charm. None of them have got a glimmer of intelligence. You look into the eyes, but there's nothing happening. And they really are. Half of them are obnoxious, and the ones that aren't obnoxious are just too thick to bother with. And yet they've managed somehow to convince the SNP to allow them power. And now they are the ones dictating policy in every single area. But that's only because the SNP haven't got enough talent amongst them to come up with a single bright idea of their own. It really is the blind being led by the blind, isn't it? Or in this case, it's the dumb being led by the dumber. Poor old Scotland, what have you done to deserve this? Honestly, it's like the penance. Anyway, there'll be an election soon enough. You have got to do something with this lot. I mean, for God's sake. It's almost... as a nation, is Scotland determined to form... Are you masochists? Is that what it is? Are you all masochists in all of the border? I mean, the people I know aren't. Most of the Scots I know are actually normal, sane, decent individuals with, you know, hopes and aspirations and dreams. It's just the ones that vote for these clowns, isn't it? Unbelievable. Anyway, I shall round off there. Thanks very much to Lorna Slater. She makes every day worth living. And it's just terrific, isn't it? Anyway, I shall stop now, as I say. If you like what you see and hear on the video, on the channel, please hit the subscribe button down there. I can't stop laughing now. Please hit the subscribe button down there. Help us out, because we are getting close to that target. We're getting close to the 5k. I would love to make the 5k as soon as we can. Do leave a like, and the likes are very important, so please hit the like. That really helps with the algorithm. On another note, I would like to apologise about getting that story out very late last night. I did a story about the reversal of fortune with Margaret Ferrier. I just wanted to address that. It was breaking news quite late. By the time I sorted it out and got the video up and everything, it was middle of the bloody night. So I don't know if anyone's seen it. If you haven't, go back and have a look. It is just utter sort of parliamentarian bollocks, to be honest. And it's the Tories up to their usual dirty tricks, I think. Anyway, there's that. So until next time, stay safe, stay well. Do please recycle, but don't bother with the DRS scheme. It's all a load of rubbish. And goodbye.